Rachel stood outside the cold hospital building, her fingers still shaking from the doctor's words. Cancer, stage 2. She could barely breathe as she pulled out her phone, hoping for comfort. Her mother picked up, but instead of warmth, all she heard was a rushed voice talking about wedding decorations and dress fittings. Susan didn't ask if Rachel was okay. She didn't ask anything. Rachel froze, realizing that even in her darkest moment, her pain was invisible to the people who should have cared most. She quietly ended the call, her chest heavy, not just with fear, but with the sting of being emotionally abandoned. With no siblings close and no partner by her side, Rachel turned to the only person she could lean on, her young daughter, Lily. At just 10 years old, Lily didn't understand everything, but she understood enough. She saw her mum's trembling hands, the silent tears after every appointment, the way food stayed untouched, and she stayed close. Rachel tried to be strong, hiding pain behind smiles, but Lily saw through it. She began holding her mother's hand tighter during drives, sat quietly beside her on long nights when the nausea wouldn't stop, and started leaving notes of encouragement under her pillow. No one else called, no one checked in, but Lily was there, every single time. Rachel soon realized that this little girl was her anchor, the one who never turned away. As the world moved on, busy with parties and dresses, Rachel faced chemo sessions and painful side effects with only one hand to hold. It was small, soft, but full of courage. In the middle of fear and sickness, that hand reminded her she wasn't completely alone. Even if the world failed her, Lily didn't, and that meant everything. Lily became more than just a daughter. She became Rachel's whole world. After the diagnosis, Rachel's strength began to fade. Her energy dropped, and simple tasks felt impossible. But Lily, only 10 years old, stood by her mother like a little warrior. She never complained. She never pulled away. She just stayed. Every hospital visit, Lily was there, holding Rachel's hand in waiting rooms, sitting quietly beside her during treatments, her small presence full of comfort and calm. On the way to appointments, the car rides were long and mostly quiet. Rachel didn't have the energy to speak, but Lily didn't mind. She would sit close, sometimes humming softly, sometimes just watching the road, understanding more than her years should allow. Those moments, though silent, were full of love. Rachel found peace in her daughter's stillness. At night, sleep rarely came easy. The pain, the fear, and the treatments kept Rachel awake. And yet, every time she opened her eyes, Lily was nearby, on the floor beside her bed with a blanket, or curled up on a chair with a flashlight and book, never letting her mum feel alone. When Rachel felt like giving up, she looked at her daughter and found the strength to keep going. Through every ache, every setback, and every long night, Lily never left her side. She became the light Rachel needed in the darkest time of her life, not with grand gestures, but with quiet, unwavering love. Rachel sat quietly, staring at her phone, her body still weak from another round of chemotherapy. She hadn't heard from her parents in weeks. No calls, no texts, not even a simple "how are you?" She'd hoped they would care, just a little. But all that hope vanished when her screen lit up. It was a message from them, but instead of comfort or concern, they asked her for money. $3,000. Not for bills or support, but for Emily's wedding. They talked about decorations, catering, and dresses like Rachel wasn't sick, like her fight meant nothing. She felt crushed. The people who were supposed to love her the most couldn't even show up for her when she needed them most. Her hands shook, not just from illness, but from disappointment that ran deep. Across the room, Lily saw everything. She didn't say a word, but she noticed the tears Rachel wiped away quickly. At only 10, Lily understood something was very wrong. She could see the loneliness in her mother's eyes, the pain that came from more than just medicine. That night, Lily lay awake, thinking. She didn't have money or answers, but she had love. She had strength beyond her years, and she knew one thing for sure. Her mother didn't deserve this. If no one else would stand by Rachel, then Lily would. No matter what, she decided in her small, brave heart to do something, anything, to bring light back into her mum's life. One quiet afternoon, while Rachel rested after a long hospital visit, Lily tiptoed into her mum's room. Her eyes scanned the small stack of papers on the bedside table, discharge forms, treatment plans, medical bills. She carefully took one and sat down with a pencil and paper. Her little fingers gripped tightly as she wrote her heart out, pouring all her feelings into a few simple lines. She didn't use big words or fancy sentences, just truth, raw and honest. She wrote about how her mum was sick and still smiled every day for her, how she was scared but never said it out loud, and how it hurt to see her mum feel so alone. Without saying anything to Rachel, Lily folded the note and placed it with the medical paper. She found an envelope, scribbled her grandparents' address, and walked to the corner mailbox. She pushed it through the slot with hope, not for money or gifts, but for love, for her mum to feel seen, for someone to care. Days later, across town, Rachel's parents opened the envelope. The hospital form fell out first, but it was Lily's words that stopped everything. George, usually firm and proud, felt the blood leave his face. His hands trembled as he read the innocent pain in his granddaughter's message. Susan said nothing. She just sat down slowly, holding the paper like it might break. For the first time, they saw what Rachel was going through, not from a doctor, but through the eyes of a child. Before the diagnosis changed everything, Rachel lived a quiet and simple life in Asheville, North Carolina. Her days began before the sun, slipping quietly out of bed to pack Lily's lunch and prepare for her nursing shift at the local clinic. She worked hard, always with a tired smile, balancing charts and patience with the thought of picking up Lily from school as her daily motivation. Their home was small but filled with warmth, old storybooks, shared laughter, and the hum of the kettle on chilly mornings. Her relationship with her parents, Susan and George, had always been polite, but never close. Conversations were short, filled with updates rather than emotion. They saw her as strong and independent, someone who didn't need much. Rachel never expected much in return. Susan, in particular, gave most of her attention to Emily, the daughter who did everything right in their eyes. Emily's successes were always celebrated with photos, posts, and endless calls, while Rachel's quiet life passed in the background. Despite being family, Rachel often felt like a guest in their world. Birthdays were sometimes forgotten, calls delayed, and love shown more through obligation than real care. But Rachel didn't complain. She poured her heart into Lily, determined to give her daughter the love and security she herself had longed for. Her life may have been quiet, even overlooked, but it was filled with moments that mattered deeply to her, until one day, everything shifted with a single word: cancer. Rachel had always been used to feeling tired, long shifts at the clinic, late-night homework checks with Lily, and endless responsibilities came with being a single mum. But this time, something felt different. She started waking up with bruises she couldn't explain, aches that lingered, and a deep exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. Still, she told herself it was just stress. Nurses don't stop. Mothers don't pause. Life doesn't wait. But Lily noticed. She watched her mom closely, the way she winced when bending down, the extra time she took climbing the stairs, how her smile seemed forced. One evening, while Rachel was making dinner, Lily quietly said, "Mum, are you okay?" Rachel brushed it off with a hug and a smile, but her daughter's worried eyes stayed with her. Eventually, Rachel made an appointment, more to silence her own worry than expecting anything serious. She didn't tell anyone. She sat through tests alone, answered questions with a brave face, and waited in the sterile room as the doctor returned with the results. Stage 2, Hodgkin's lymphoma. The words echoed like thunder in a silent room. Her hands trembled as she stepped outside the clinic. With no one else to call, she dialed her mother. She needed something, comfort, even just a kind voice. But Susan, busy with wedding plans, didn't ask a single question. No. "Are you okay?" Just a cold, distracted goodbye. Rachel stood there in the parking lot, stunned, realizing she would be facing the storm completely on her own. The day of Rachel's first chemo felt heavier than any shift she'd ever worked. The hospital chair was cold, the air too quiet, and even though nurses smiled, everything felt distant. The needle went in, and with it, fear settled deep inside her. She didn't tell her parents about the treatment. After their last call, she knew there was no point. They weren't listening. They didn't want to know. So she kept it all to herself. The days after were brutal. Her body weakened fast. Nausea came in waves. Her hair began to fall out in clumps. There were nights when she couldn't even sit up without help. Lily would bring water, wrap her in a blanket and hold her hand in the dark. She was just a child, But somehow, she became Rachel's strength. One afternoon, while resting between vomiting spells, her phone buzzed. A message from her mother lit the screen. But it wasn't about her health. No, how are you? No, do you need anything? Just a simple, cold request. Emily's dress deposit is due. Can you help with $800? Rachel stared at the screen, hands shaking. Not from chemo this time, but from heartbreak. Every day she was fighting for her life, and all they could think about was a wedding. Still, she said nothing. She deleted the message, wiped her tears, and turned back toward the living room, where Lily was setting the table for two. Just two, as always. Lily sat quietly at the kitchen table, watching her mum struggle to open a jar with trembling hands. Something inside her said this wasn't just about medicine or hospitals anymore. It was about being heard. She looked up at Rachel and softly asked, "Do Grandma and Grandpa know how sick you really are?" Rachel didn't respond. Her silence said enough. That was when Lily knew she had to do something. Later that night, when her mum had finally dozed off from exhaustion, Lily crept into the drawer where Rachel kept her hospital papers. She carefully picked out one with lots of medical words and numbers, unsure of what most of it meant, but certain it was important. Then, using her favorite notebook paper, she started writing. Her words were simple but powerful. How hard her mum was trying, how tired she looked every day, and how much Lily missed seeing her smile. She folded the note and tucked it with the hospital paper into an envelope. She planned to mail it the next day, hoping it might make her grandparents feel something, anything. But before she could hide it, Rachel found it tucked under her pillow. She opened it slowly, read the shaky handwriting, and felt her throat tighten. But instead of stopping her daughter, she gently folded it back and handed it to her, saying only, "Make sure you put a stamp on it." In that quiet moment, mother and daughter understood each other completely. The sky was grey that afternoon, and Rachel had just returned home, weak and drained from another long chemo session. Her body ached, her head pounded, and her heart felt heavier than ever. As she slowly got out of the car, she caught sight of Lily across the street. The little girl stood at the mailbox, stretching to reach the top slot, holding an envelope tightly. Rachel watched as Lily gently slid it inside and stood there a moment, almost like she was saying a silent wish. Later that evening, curiosity got the better of Rachel. She asked Lily about the letter, and with honest eyes, Lily handed her a second copy she'd kept. Rachel sat down, unsteady, and unfolded it. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words her daughter had written in neat, determined handwriting. The message was simple, but brave. Lily had told her grandparents the truth, how sick Rachel was, how she was going through everything alone, and how they hadn't even asked how she was. Each sentence carried a weight that hit Rachel straight in the chest. It was everything she had wanted to say, but never had the strength to. Her little girl had spoken for her, stood up for her, and tried to shake the silence from the people who were supposed to care the most. Rachel felt her eyes sting. In that moment, she didn't just feel proud, she felt seen. Lily had become her voice. The invitation came unexpectedly. Rachel received a message from Aunt Janet, asking her and Lily to join a weekend family brunch. Despite everything, Rachel agreed. Maybe it was time. She didn't expect much, just a chance to let Lily feel some normalcy again. That morning, Lily held her hand tightly as they walked into the cozy backyard gathering. Laughter and clinking plates filled the air. But the moment Susan and George saw Rachel and Lily, the mood shifted. Their eyes widened, faces tense. The chatter around them faded into a strange silence. Lily, calm and brave, stepped forward with quiet determination. She held out the same envelope again, the one they had clearly received earlier. Her voice was clear and strong. "Did you read it?" she asked. No anger, just a need for truth. No one spoke. Time seemed to stand still. George took the letter from Lily's small hands and looked down. Rachel could see his fingers tighten slightly around the paper. He read each word slowly, carefully, his expression beginning to shift. Across from him, Susan sat still. For the first time in what felt like forever, emotion touched her face. Not frustration, not distraction, but something that looked like regret, or maybe realization. Rachel said nothing. She didn't need to. Lily had done what so many adults couldn't. She brought silence to life with just a few honest words. And in that moment, something in the room finally cracked open. Susan looked at Rachel for the first time with real eyes, not distracted or distant. Her voice, usually sharp or dismissive, came out quieter than anyone expected. "Did you go through all of this by yourself?" she asked. almost as if afraid to hear the answer. Rachel didn't speak at first. Her eyes glistened, but she simply nodded once. The truth didn't need extra words. Lily, sitting close, straightened up. Her voice was calm, but firm. "She did tell you," she said, her gaze fixed on her grandmother. The weight in that room shifted again, this time heavier, honest. George let out a breath and rubbed his forehead. "I didn't think it was serious," he muttered. "I figured it was just stress. People bounce back all the time." But his words fell flat. No one replied. Silence hung there, until Susan finally turned toward Lily. Her eyes, tired and unsure, softened. "You were so brave," she whispered. The words seemed to surprise even her. Lily didn't flinch, didn't smile. She just looked at her grandmother and said, "She's my mum." It wasn't said with drama or tears, just a quiet truth spoken like a promise. And in that moment, the room held something it hadn't before. Acknowledgement, not fixing, not forgiving, just finally seeing. Rachel looked at her daughter with pride, knowing that even in silence, Lily had been her strongest voice, and maybe, just maybe, that voice had finally been heard. As the brunch ended, Rachel gently took Lily's hand, and together they walked toward the door. No one rushed to stop them. No apologies came, no tearful hugs, just the soft clinking of plates and the quiet murmur of a family, unsure how to face what had been exposed. Rachel didn't look back. She didn't need to. Outside, the air felt different, lighter, not because the burden had disappeared, but because Rachel had chosen to set it down. She had spent so long hoping for her parents to notice, to care, to show up. But now, she realized she didn't need their validation to survive. She already had everything she needed in the small, steady hand of her daughter beside her. Lily walked proudly, knowing her voice had finally made a difference. Not because it changed her grandparents, but because it helped her mother stand taller. Rachel looked down at her and smiled. Not the kind of smile you wear for others, but one that blooms from within when something painful finally releases its grip. There was no dramatic ending, no full-circle reunion, but there was peace, a quiet shift in Rachel's heart where longing used to live. She stopped hoping her parents would become the people she once needed. Instead, she embraced the truth. They may never change, and that was okay. What mattered most had been beside her all along. Lily, her light in the darkest days, was more than enough, and that made her feel whole. One evening, as the rain tapped softly against the window, Rachel sat curled on the couch, Lily asleep beside her. Her phone buzzed quietly with a new message. It was from her mother. The subject line was simple, just her name. Inside the short message, Susan wrote that they hadn't realized how serious things were. She admitted they felt ashamed for not being there. She said they hoped to speak someday. And at the end, she wrote, "We love you." Rachel stared at the screen, her heart still and calm. There were no tears, no rush of emotion, no bitterness, just quiet understanding. She didn't feel the need to answer, not because she was holding on to anger, but because she had already found peace. For so long, she had waited for some sign that they cared. Now it came, but it didn't change anything inside her. She set the phone down gently and looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully after all they had been through together. That little girl had shown more love, more loyalty than anyone else ever had. And in that moment, Rachel knew she didn't need more. Forgiveness didn't have to come with a reply. Closure didn't need a conversation. Sometimes peace is choosing silence. Sometimes it's knowing your story mattered even when others were too late to hear it. Rachel smiled to herself, not out of sadness, but strength. She had already moved forward, and that was enough. Each day brought small signs of change. Rachel's body, once weak and drained, slowly began to show strength again. The chemo sessions had taken a toll, but now her doctors smiled a little more with each visit. The scans weren't perfect, but they were better. The tumours were shrinking. Hope, once distant, began to feel real. Her hair, which she had quietly mourned, started to grow back in soft, short strands. She would catch herself in the mirror and feel a flicker of pride. Food began to taste like something again. Her appetite gently returned, and Lily celebrated every bite like a victory. Walks that used to exhaust her became longer, steadier. She found herself breathing deeper, smiling more. All around the house, Lily had left little slips of encouragement, tucked in her mum's books, stuck on the fridge, slipped into her coat pockets. Each one handwritten in colourful ink. "You're healing. You shine. Keep going, Mommy." Rachel would pause each time she found one, holding the words like treasure. There were no big celebrations, no finish line yet, but in the quiet moments, sitting with Lily on the porch, sipping tea in the early light, laughing softly at a show, they both knew they were coming back to life. Healing wasn't loud or dramatic. It was slow, gentle, and filled with love that never gave up. And in every way that mattered, Rachel was rising. Rachel slowly eases back into her job at the clinic, working shorter shifts while still gaining her strength. She moves carefully, but with more confidence than before. Her co-workers greet her warmly, but it's her patients who truly notice the change. A teenage girl receiving treatment watches Rachel quietly one day and finally asks, "How do you stay strong?" Rachel smiles gently, taking a moment before replying. "I stopped waiting to be loved the way I deserved," she says softly, the words steady but full of truth. It's not bitterness, it's clarity. Later that week, Rachel and Lily sit on a park bench under the fading afternoon light. Lily leans her head on her mum's shoulder, the two of them enjoying the peaceful stillness. Without looking up, Lily asks, "Will we see Grandma and Grandpa again?" Rachel doesn't rush to answer. She thinks about everything that's happened, the silence, the letter, the brunch, the email. Then she answers with quiet honesty, "Maybe, if they show up differently." Lily nods, not needing more. They both understand. Family doesn't always look like what you expect. It isn't about titles or shared blood. It's about effort, presence, and love. In that moment, with the wind gently moving through the trees and the sun warming their faces, Rachel knows they're building their own kind of family, one rooted in truth, trust, and the kind of love that shows up when it matters most. Rachel sits by the window one quiet evening, watching Lily color on the floor. The soft hum of life continues around her, but inside, something has settled. As she reflects on the months behind her, she realizes this journey was never just about an illness. It was never only about treatments or doctor visits. It was about something deeper, about who stayed close when everything got hard, and who disappeared when she needed them most. Cancer brought pain, but what hurt more was being ignored by the people she once thought would be there without question. Her parents never truly saw her, not in the way that mattered. They had their own priorities, their own golden child to celebrate. But Lily, just a little girl, understood everything without being told. She showed up every day, in silence, in small actions, in fierce love. That was what saved Rachel. That was what taught her what family really means. She never got the big apology or the dramatic change she once hoped for, but what she did find was much greater, her own peace. Letting go didn't make her weak. It gave her freedom. She didn't need anyone to finally say they were sorry. She had Lily, her constant, her light. Through heartbreak and illness, Rachel discovered her worth wasn't tied to anyone's validation. She learned how to stand tall again, and she knew, deep down, this was a story of healing, of knowing who truly matters and choosing to hold on to only that. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Take care of your heart. You truly deserve it.